day and welcome to today's session in our Masterclass series, hosted by Schneider Electric's Youth Impact Through Learning initiative. It is a pleasure to have you all with us today for this important conversation titled Impact Investing. Impact investing is a powerful tool that aligns financial returns with measurable social and environmental outcomes. It is a key part of how we drive meaningful change. We are honored to be joined by two exceptional leaders in this space, Christophe Poline, the Sustainable Investments Director of Schneider Electric since 2009, as well as Leslie Zambelli, who serves as the Impact Investor Director of Schneider Electric Access to Energy Asia. My name is Ruisa Safla, and I will be the moderator for this discussion. Christophe, let's start with you. Impact investing goes beyond finances and profit. It is about measurable social and environmental impact. How does Schneider Electric approach this, and what sets it apart from traditional investment models?
Schneider Electric launched its impact investment practice in 2009, and we have been leading the change with the aim of accelerating the achievement of the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, and especially the SDG 7, through dedicated investment. Thanks to our strong network and deep knowledge of the energy ecosystem, we have invested in over 60 startups and projects via 4 equity funds that we have been launching. We are investing in 2 different ways. On one hand, we are directly managing some fund, which with a very hands-on approach. So we are participating to the governance of all the startups that have been invested by these 2 funds. And for these startups, we are leveraging all the Schneider ecosystem to provide pro bono technical assistance. And on the other hand, we are contributing to funds that are independently managed. But in both cases, our guidelines remain the same. We are looking for the social impact brought by energy access, energy usage, and energy efficiency. And we always work with partners when it comes to financial contribution.
So you mentioned the dual approach, direct fund management and partnerships. What are some of the biggest challenges you face in scaling these investments, and how would you navigate them?
Well, there are many challenges. The first one is we need to find partners to finance impact fund. That's the start. Then, when we have the financing, we need to find the right startups that will generate the impact we are looking for. Then, when we have invested in the startup, we need to help this startup to grow and try to develop them to increase the impact. And last but not least, after a certain period of time, we have to be able to exit our investment and recoup the money that we have invested. So to be able to find all these challenges, you really need very dedicated and competent teams.
I actually think it would be helpful also to share a little bit about what we're talking about when we're talking of impact investing. And most of the time, we are actually using that framework from the Global Impact Investing Network. So that is a network that is somehow setting some of the definitions and some of the trying to really grow that ecosystem of impact investing. And they are defining impact investing with different criteria. One is to have measurable social and environmental goals. One is to have the intentionality of having that impact. And the other one is also to have sustainability and profitability of that investment. So if you look at the slide, for instance, of that spectrum of what is impact investing, you would see on the left that you have finance goal, measurable impact goals, additionality, and intention. So on the left, you would find the traditional finance, which is actually where you are looking at your financial goals and you are looking at optimizing the financial goals, but not necessarily looking at what is the intention. Are you creating negative impact or not? On the other hand, if you look at the right side of the spectrum, you would find philanthropy. So here the idea is that you can accept a full loss of your capital if you have a very strong impact and you really have a strong intentionality in getting that impact and being catalytic. In the middle of that, you would find responsible finance, sustainable finance, and impact investing, which are considered to be part of the economy, impact economy. So on responsible finance, you are looking at avoiding harm and mitigate ESG risk. For sustainable finance, it's more, really trying to benefit the stakeholders and willing to have a positive effect and positive impact. And when it comes to impact investing, that would be around contributing to the lasting solution and really being catalytic. And I think with our practice at Schneider, that's also where we sit. So really on that impact investment framework, trying to be intentional in having our impact, social and environmental impact, at the same time as investing in startups that can be profitable on the long run. So we really sit on that impact investing and then slightly impact first position.
Schneider Electric has been recognized globally for its leadership in sustainability. Can you share an example of a startup that has made a real difference through impact investing? And what kind of outcomes do you aim to achieve through these investments?
One of the best examples on how we can contribute to energy access through impact investing is probably our investment in a company called Okra Solar. We invested in this startup in a very early stage because we were convinced that the mesh grid technologies that they were developing would be a game changer. Now, 7 years later, the mesh grid technology is recognized as one of the cheapest solutions to electrify rural communities. And thanks to Okra equipment, more than 5,000 homes now have reliable access to electricity in Haiti, and many more will be connected soon in Nigeria. So this is typically an example of how we supported a new technology that is greatly improving access to electricity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christophe, for sharing on that. Leslie, do you have an example that you'd like to share with us as well?
Yeah, sure. So, to illustrate maybe the topic of providing both environmental and social impact at the same time as being profitable, maybe I can share that example of a company called Agros. This is a company that is distributing solar pumping system for farmers in rural area who typically use gensets pumping or, who would typically use diesel pumping system. And so what Agros is doing is that they are replacing this conventional pump by solar pump. So it has an impact on the environment. At the same time, that's a one-off investment for the farmer. So they have to pay up front, but then very fast they can recover on their investment compared to paying the price of buying diesel on a regular basis. So it can also have some economical impact and yet social impact for the farmers who are actually using that solution. And it has a business model that's become profitable because they are selling these pumps. So here we can find a very strong example of a model where you can really deliver on this triple bottom line.
Inspiring to see how early stage support can lead to scalable, real-world impact. Schneider Electric's purpose is to create impact by empowering all to make the most of our energy and resources, bridging progress with sustainability for all. Leslie, what role does innovation play in climate challenges within the energy sector? And how does innovation contribute to entrepreneurial efforts in the energy sector?
Yeah, sure. So I think one point that is very interesting is that you can see innovation as, deep tech innovation. And I think you have a very large ecosystem of climate tech company and climate tech investors as well, where you also have this type of technological innovation that are brought to the market and are really disruptive. I think on the example that Christophe shared at the time of when Okra started the mesh grids, that was a very strong innovation where they brought that software to enable the exchange of energy consumption and energy produced by each of the household, for instance. But what is interesting is that in the different fund that Schneider has started or is managing, we also invested a lot into innovation in terms of, business model, or how is this technology or solution is going to be able to become affordable because I'm bringing some innovation in the way that I'm distributing it or in the way that I'm helping on financing it. So it's not necessarily technical innovation. And I think when you are looking at some of the challenges that are typically, for instance, in Asia, in India, in Vietnam, where we are operating and we have startups, sometimes it's not that the technology doesn't exist, it's just that it's not, it doesn't reach the last mile, or it's not affordable enough. So the innovation is also coming there, but I think to be able to put that in place, you also need to have patient capital and investors that do understand the challenges of putting that innovation in place. And that's where impact investing, by providing patient capital, by looking at intentionally at the impact, is really playing a role to unlock these entrepreneurs and help them to to better tackle the climate and some of the social challenges.
Christophe, many startups struggle to balance financial sustainability with social impact. In your view, what are the top 3 factors you look for when assessing startups' potential in the energy sector?
Well, the first point is that when we talk about sustainable energy transition, we are facing the fact that the transition will not happen if people are left behind. So we have to support the development of startups that facilitating energy access in developing countries, but also the social business helping to decrease energy poverty in mature countries. So these are two different cases, but in both cases, the main challenge for the startups and what we are going to look for is solutions that requires both a relatively high level of capex, while the end customer is underprivileged. So we look for startups that are able to manage those two difficulties. We are selling products which are expensive to customers who don't have money. So the main challenge, as just Leslie said, is not so much a technical issue, but the financing capability and the capacity to manage customers, organization, and payment capacities. This is what we are really looking for. High quality products and also a business model that encompass the organization of the customer base and the solvability of the customers. For one example, I could say, for instance, in one startup we invested in France, is a social business called La Fabrique à Youps, and they are manufacturing tiny houses for homeless people. So typically a tiny house is something expensive, and homeless people are totally broke. So the business model they have developed is to rely on one end on communities, high net worth individuals, or foundation to finance the tiny houses. And then on the customer side, they are partnering with an NGO which helps the customer or the inhabitants to get into their new houses and to learn how to change their life by being out of the street. This is an example of what we are looking for in terms of startups. So it's a very complex business model that can bring both the product, the finance, and the customer organization.
Thank you for sharing such an insightful example with us. We know in this digital age, technology is transforming the energy landscape at a rapid pace. Leslie, with clean energy technology evolving rapidly, how can entrepreneurs stay ahead of the curve and leverage these innovations to create scalable, sustainable solutions?
No, that's a very interesting question. And I think what we have seen is most of the time the entrepreneurs are actually really aware of the different innovations that are happening in their ecosystem. They are really ahead of the curve. They are bringing new technologies. They're always willing to explore and create new solutions. And what is interesting is that most of the time, the startups are very flexible and reactive. So they have this ability to test on products very fast and then see whether that's working or not and then adapt it. So I think this flexibility is really helping them to go from, okay, there is this new technology, new innovation. How do we actually try and use that for a specific use case? And how do we test that specific use case and see if that works or not? And if we can make, a business model out of it and if it has an impact or not. So here, I'm not talking so much of the very deep tech R&D solution where it would require a lot of financing upfront for the R&D, but I'm more talking of how some of the entrepreneurs can see the trends, look at what is existing, what things are how things are evolving, and then including that in their solution. Here, maybe there is one very interesting example that I can give, a company that we've invested that is called Atex. They're working on clean cooking. So with clean cooking, they started with a biodigester. So they were selling biodigester for farmers that could then use, the gas out of the biodigesters to cook. When they tried to tap on the clean cooking challenge or the cooking challenge, which is huge, they also realized that they could work with e-cook stove. So they decided to create a new type of stove that can be plugged to the grids. So this one is great, but it's also expensive. How do you make it affordable for households? So they started by providing pay-as-you-go system to this household, and then it created a lot of challenges as well. Because if you are not paid upfront for a startup, it can be difficult. So they started to look at the carbon credits trend, and now what they are doing is that they are using an IoT system. So they are basically able to collect data from the clean cooking, from the e-cooks that they sell, so that they know exactly how much a household has used, how much they have used the clean cooking, and they are able to see by how much was the carbon reduced compared to them using typical biomass. And so with that, they are also able to accrue carbon credits and then monetize them. So this new revenue stream that they have by monetizing the carbon credits, they can use it to reduce the cost of the clean cook stove for their customer. So it's kind of a very interesting positive flywheel that they are building, where they're able to use a new technology, IoT system with a digital verification methodology for carbon credits, to reduce the cost of the e-cook stove for their customers and make it more affordable. So, that's really how they were able to look at what was happening in terms of technology, carbon credits, the different trends, and embed that into a new solution to try and tackle one of the challenges that they had, which was the affordability of the e-cook stove.
First off, let's talk about energy usage as a catalyst for development. How can entrepreneurs design solutions that go beyond access and deliver real value to communities?
Well, this is really a key question, because energy usage is really the source of our impact. Having access to energy, if you don't do anything with this energy, will not help you. So to promote energy usage, we have invested in startups that are focusing on designing and distributing devices that will use energy and help to generate revenue. It could be fridges, for instance, which is very important, especially in developing countries and in Africa, where the weather is very hot. It could also be solar irrigation system. It could be agricultural mills or any kind of equipment that will be able to use energy and help the people to generate revenues. It's quite difficult to find good startups designing and distributing such devices, because these devices, there have to be many contradictory features. They need to be highly reliable, because when you are distributing devices in rural villages in Africa, maintenance is a key issue. If you have to go in a village to repair something, it will cost you a lot of money. So quality is very important. And usually what goes alongside with quality is cost. So the products are very often costly. But also they need to be very efficient, because when you are in a rural part, the source of energy is usually either a solar home system, a biggish solar home system, or a small microgrid. So you have to be very efficient in order to use all the energy which is available. And then, as the customers are poor, you need also to find the financial capability to distribute the products. So those startups are not very common to find. But we have invested in one startup called Empt Innovation, which has been created by people who are very knowledgeable in power electronics, and they have developed many high quality, energy efficient devices. For instance, a 100-liter fridge that can help people to keep food, or people running small shops to be able to sell cold drink, for instance, and hence increase their revenue. This fridge can be powered on solar panels or on the grid, it can be DC or AC. And it also relies on two different types of battery to make sure that it's autonomous when the power is down, or during the night if it's powered by solar system. So you've got thermal batteries and you've got electrical batteries. So you see those devices, when you want to go to energy usage, it's quite a difficult business, and it's difficult to find very efficient startups, but we are committed to do that, and we already find one.
To wrap up, what advice would you give young entrepreneurs looking to create impactful energy solutions, and what pitfalls should they avoid?
Well, there are many pitfalls, and they all need to be avoided from start. The first one, as we discussed, is to make sure that the solution you want to put on the market is technically solid, and you have made very numerous and thorough field tests. Because if you have to make changes, update or correction when your product is on the field, it's too late, and it will cost you so much money that it might actually kill the company. So my first advice would be really be sure of the technical side of the solution you are putting on the market. The second point is never underestimate your cash needs. Everything will cost more than you think. CapEx, OpEx, and above all, working cap. So you really have to be very careful in your financial forecasting and make sure that you have all the money you need as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would definitely agree with that. And I think another thing that we've seen is sometimes when you start your activity, or when you start the startup, you have many ideas and many different opportunities. And I think one of the advice from me would be try and not to do too many things at the same time, but try and focus on one thing that is actually working. So you can test. It's normal that at starts there are many different ideas, many different use cases, but once you find one that is working, try and put a lot of, not to diversify too much, but try and put energy, money, resources on one specific goal, because then it will also show that there is a strong strategy that is followed, and not everything is done on opportunistic basis. So I think that's very important once you found the right use case, the right ideas, the right distribution channel, to try and focus on that, and then to bring volume to it and to grow that specific one.
My last advice would be, don't forget that you are at the start of a marathon, and that you will have to run for 5, 6, maybe 10 years. So you really have to be prepared to face a lot of difficulties and to be very, very resilient in the year to come.
Maybe to build on what you said, Christophe, I think what we've seen is also that different phases of the startup growth are requiring different type of skills from the founders. So people are very good at starting a company, being creative, finding new ways of working, navigating with uncertainty. And then at some point you need to go to a phase where it's about growing, accelerating, massifying. So it is about also trying to stay up to that different skills, understanding that sometimes you need to be to have complementarity with other people that are going to support, that the role of a founder and CEO is not necessarily to know everything and to be able to do everything by himself or by herself, but also to be able to attract talent, find the right people, build the best team possible. And so at the end of the day, it's not just one person's success, it's also really a team success. So spending time in recruiting, training people, onboarding them, and find ways to retaining them, is also something that is very important.
And never forget your customers, because you're still working for the customer, and they are the customers that will actually bring the impact and that will actually make your company survive. So really keep your customer in mind. That may be the most important one.
And very interestingly, I recently met with some founders of startup, and they were asked about the impact reports, because sometimes investors are asking for a lot of KPIs, tracking a lot of quantitative, qualitative impact, and so on. And so they were asked, do you see value into that? And some of them were saying, but if I'm trying to understand the impact I have on my customers, for me it's also trying to understand what are the benefits that my customers get out of my product. And at the end of the day, it's like a satisfaction survey from my customer. So interestingly, they were really tying the satisfaction of their customers with the impact that they can have. And I think that's also very interesting. And to build on what you were saying, Christophe, is, the customer are really at the center of everything. And this is also how impact is going to increase and to really massify as well.
Thank you both for such insightful advice in real life examples. It is clear that impact investing is not just about capital, but also about commitment, creativity, collaboration, and community. And thank you all for joining us today for this exciting session. I hope that the session has sparked ideas and inspiration for your own journey in the energy transition.